Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Biz&Soul, the podcast to feed your business and your soul. Tonight we're with Leo. Hi, Leo. Welcome.
Hi.
Leo is a fashion designer from Antwerp, and she's going to introduce herself.
Well, actually, the brand is called Leo. My full name is Leonneke Derksen, which is a Dutch name. I'm 36 years old, and the brand has just moved to Antwerp, actually. So I was in Antwerp before, but this is very recent for me that you call me a designer from Antwerp because...
Well, I mean, how do you call yourself?
I guess a fashion designer, yeah. But not really from anywhere, I would say.
Ah, okay, interesting.
I mean, I'm Dutch, of course, but yeah. I was born in Holland. I stayed there until I was 18. And then I moved to Antwerp to do the Antwerp Fashion Academy there. And after that, I moved to New York for a short while. I tried to find a job, but there wasn't any. And then I moved to Paris. I stayed there for 6 years. And then I moved to Brussels. I stayed 6 years. And now I moved to Antwerp back.
Okay. So yeah, you move quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Every time 6 years.
11 times I calculated.
All right. So now you're based in Antwerp.
Yes.
That's why. Mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe let's go back to your childhood. Can you explain in what kind of family you were born, how you were raised, what kind of childhood you had?
I think I can say I had a really good childhood. I was raised in a small village, which is great when you're a kid. I think there was a lot of outdoors and small neighborhood and a lot of other kids. My mom was a teacher, children teacher. And my dad works. He's retiring in a month, so soon he's going to stop working. But he works at, or at the time, he worked at the dance academy in. First, he started in Rotterdam, and then he moved to Tilburg, where he did a lot of work in the theater. And actually, he's a musician at heart. He just loves music. So there was a lot of music also when we grew up, mostly from the other side of Europe, I would say. Very folklore inspired music.
Okay.
A lot of dancing. My mom danced also, and that's kind of how they met. And I have a little sister that's 3 years younger that is basically completely the opposite of me.
What does that mean?
Physically. Yeah, I don't know. She's blonde. She has other interests. I think you can tell we're sisters, but very different, different type of person.
Well, then your parents did a good job in like respecting your personalities and not trying to format you.
Very much. I'm very lucky that they did, because they always supported me and my sister in whatever we wanted to do. I've never heard them say like, "No, you need to be a lawyer. Or it's better, smarter, or whatever." No,
more safe. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So tell me more then, when you moved to Antwerp and started studying there, did you enjoy your studies?
Yes, I did. I learned a lot, but it's a extremely heavy education. It was also, I mean, this school is known as one of the best schools in the world, and there's a reason for that. You really get trained to be ready for the world. And even though I didn't really learn the business side of everything that I had to learn afterwards, you really learn how to create an identity and that goes with falling and standing up again, and you don't get it cheap. Let's say that you really have to work extremely hard to finish that school. So, but the intensity and the other students and the fact that there were so many other people from other countries, it's super international, made it fun also. Like, it was exciting because they also organize a show every year, so you could show your work to the world. And yeah, you were exhausted, obviously, but when you are exhausted and you don't really get a lot of sleep, sometimes the gratitude is even bigger somehow. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that everyone in fashion can understand.
You knew when you were little that you were going to do fashion?
No, I think you often hear that story of like, I was already interested in like dressing my dolls and like things like that. Or my grandmother was like, no, none of that. I think that's also where the concept of how I see fashion came from, that it's more about a story or like a topic or something more than just draping like it was done like in back in the days, and you would drape a beautiful dress and that would be a design or something.
But so earlier you mentioned you first, like, because your teacher said you were going to be a writer, you first thought you were going to be a writer. I think it's important because I find it often like what other people, if it's teachers, parents, family members, friends, whoever, tell us when we're later, oh, you're good at this, you're going to be this, that it kind of influences. So I thought it was interesting to see how did it impact you, and how did it then, how was your decision-making process, let's say?
Well, I think my mom only told me much later on that he said that, because it was really when I was 6 or 7, so I wouldn't have understood what he was saying. Yeah. But for a long time, I thought that, oh, that's actually kind of sad that I didn't become a writer, because I do like writing or something, like I see why he said that. But then now later on, I just realized that I am a writer. I just don't write words on paper. I make clothes. It's the same thing, actually.
And you put words on your clothes.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
Okay, so what happened after Antwerp and your studies?
Well, when I graduated, I was asked to do an internship in New York, which was extremely exciting. I was like, okay, I don't even care who, what, I just want to go. I had to drop my apartment and all of my stuff, which is a lot after doing 4 years of academy. Within a week, put everything in a stock and just leave. And that was a very cool experience. And I really wanted to stay. But in the US, obviously, it's very difficult. You have to prove that you can bring something to the table that a US citizen doesn't, with the whole visa and everything. And I just came out of school, so nobody was going to really do that for me, I think, at that point. So it was too early, actually, to go and look for a job. And then I moved to Paris, and I stayed there 6 years. I worked for different fashion houses, all kinds of different ones, and then it left me a little bit guessing or unsatisfied, or there was a lot of questions, especially about the way that fashion houses were working. Obviously, like about the human aspect, or the sustainable human aspect of of those places that I've seen that was very unhealthy. And I was wondering if there would be another way of creating a brand or a place where people could work a bit more normal hours, and if that would be possible. And I didn't find that yet. And it's not bad to work a lot. I'm working a lot, but working for the wrong things or for useless things, because either there's not enough communication, or people are just afraid to lose their job and be replaced. That's maybe something else. So, for example, just I had the experience of looking at a side seam for 8 hours until 11 at night with 6 people. And I was really wondering if any customer would know that we would have worked with so many people for so long on a garment, and if that was really useful to leave your sleep for.
Exactly.
And this kind of things. So obviously when a collection needs to get finished, the whole team is extremely high on excitement, and those are the times also where you sleep a bit less maybe, or you work a bit more, and that's totally fine, because you need
but you
them.
can rest afterwards. I guess it's also a balance of being able to rest. If you never get a chance to rest, then you're just burning out.
Or if the non-resting period starts too early.
What do you mean?
Well, there's always a period before a collection needs to be finished where it's it's really, really heavy upon everyone. But if you can make that period a bit smaller, if you start later with stressing and late hours, then you're way more productive, and you make it as well. So, yeah.
So I'm curious, is it after those 6 years that you started your own company?
Yes, but there were other things than just this part. This part was obviously very, something everyone was talking about, or something everyone is always talking about when it comes to fashion. We all knew it also, kind of. But there were other things. Sorry. I had the feeling that everyone was digging into the same libraries to find inspiration. It all felt quite dinosaur, I always called it. I felt, like from another time, and people just had learned to do things in a certain way, and it had been that way for so long, especially in Paris. And I didn't really get that in the beginning. I remember thinking, why do all the cafes look the same in Paris? That's so boring, why don't people make something out of it with their own individual taste? I mean, all these bar owners, they must have something to say, and they maybe want to have another color of wall. And why do they all put the same straw tabouret and the stone tables, and they serve the same things? And I really didn't get that. And then after a while living in Paris, it's just really about being proud of having those chairs, and that it looks Parisian, and that was something I really didn't get. And I think that's very much something that I had to understand a little bit more. But that's the same in fashion houses. There were a lot of rules that dated from so long ago that will never change, maybe, which is fine, because maybe they don't need to be changed. But I wasn't really interested in that. So I wanted to design from another perspective, more from what we feel when we put on a garment, or how our feelings can change because of that, or how our dressing is dependent on in what kind of place we live or where we're going to. And more connected to a person or a generation, not so much connected to a muse or some kind of era in time where you take inspiration from. That wasn't really something that interested me. So, but I guess that comes from the storytelling part from before.
Okay. Well, it's probably also a mix, because when you say maybe they don't need to change, I mean, maybe that aspect they don't, but I mean, and fashion industry is, of course, not the only industry, but I mean, it's one of the most polluting industry in the world, and the toxic environment, it's really known for it too. So, I mean, if they never have that kind of innovative way of thinking, then of course the change process is going to be much slower, I guess. So I think they really need to have some people have another perspective and be open to that. Yeah. And I always wonder, why are they so afraid to like have more respect everywhere? I mean, like more respect towards the people, more respect towards the planet. It's not going to hurt anyone, I think. And even I think the productivity, if you do it in a smart way, yeah, it's still business savvy or business wise decisions. So
yeah.
So your company, when did you start it?
Well, it's actually the next chapter of the story. I started that because I couldn't find a place really where I felt like I would stand behind. I would stand behind it 100%. Mm-hmm. Style-wise, the way they were managing things, the way, and that's also something maybe that wasn't really up to me to think that, even because I wasn't at the head of these companies. I was at the bottom, so I realized I realized that I wanted to be involved in the decision making of things. I wasn't really so good at just following orders because they're orders. I would always say yes, but, and they made a joke out of that, like a lot of, it was it was obvious that I preferred leading a group than being part of a group. Yeah.
And being told what you have to do.
Yeah. No, this I don't mind, but I would always improve. I wanted to improve things. Mm-hmm. If someone would tell me, do it that way, and I would say, yeah, but I've done it before in another way, and it will save me 2 more days. And and they would be like, shut up, just do it that way. Okay. And I would be like, yes, but. Yeah. Because I wanted to be more efficient also, for all of these other things. But I was probably just a pain in the ass because they had their reasons to ask me to do it in a certain way. And I didn't know anything really about managing or whatever. Like, maybe they wanted me to spend a long time on it because they didn't know what else to give me for the next couple of days. And they were happy if I would be like out of their way for a while,
Yeah, but you need to understand. So for you, it's like important to understand.
Yeah.
What's your relationship to risk and uncertainty? Did you feel like starting your company, were you like very confident about it? Like, like this is the right thing to do? Or did it feel very unsafe and insecure?
Both, because you have no idea what you're starting. So obviously there's a big insecurity about, what am I doing? Like, is this the right thing? Like all of those questions. I think nobody that starts a company does not feel that. That's not possible, I think. But I also wasn't. I was confident, but I wasn't overconfident neither. It was just necessary to create a company. It was simple as that. I needed to invoice people. There was a demand. I did some projects and people wanted more, and I just needed to be able to give them more. And it was more of a practical thing in the beginning. Like, okay, let's just make a TVA number, basically. What are we going to call it?
But that's the best way,
If, that's a bit like this question when someone has straight hair and they want curls, and when you have curly hair, you want straight hair. You know, like it's definitely less like, afraid approach somehow. It's like you jump in and you go for it right away. As where if you take your time, you might take too much time and you're never ready to start. You know, that feeling of like, yeah, but I can still do that. Now I have my website, but then I still want to see like maybe in other countries I could do that, I could do this, and maybe I need to translate my business plan. And you can work 5 years on starting a company before you actually do. But I mean, I think my way was extreme. Like it was too much, like jumping in. I did not think enough.
Really?
Yeah.
So, but what was like the most difficult for you? How long have you been having your company? When?
Almost 10 years.
Okay,
This
so
year
in
we're
this
gonna have
10
a
years
10 years
anniversary.
Yes.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Little silence because we're drinking champagne. Okay, so yeah, what was the most difficult part or parts? What really challenged you?
I find it a very difficult question because it just really depends when you ask me. There have been a trillion difficult things.
But
there
what were
have been
then
a trillion exciting things. You know, like it's all, there's not one thing. If you would have asked me a year ago, it would be that my collection was stuck in Shanghai in a showroom because of COVID rules. And, you know, and 2 years before that was something else. And yeah, it's there's a lot of difficult moments that you go through. And you become an extreme, problem solver, actually.
True.
I would maybe call myself even more of a problem solver today than a designer. But it's the same thing again, you know, it's also the same thing.
Yeah. But okay, sorry, but I'm gonna insist a little bit, and then we'll drop it if it doesn't resonate with you. But I mean, then maybe also let's forget really just purely the professional aspect. But in those 10 years, were there like moments that you thought, oh man, it was really hard, and I'm actually proud of myself that I overcame this?
Yeah, I think what has always been the hardest for me is not anything that has to do with money or anything that has to do with recognition. It's my team. And when I work with people and they decide to leave for whatever reason, that's the hardest part. When you really enjoyed like working with that person, and you have to let them go, and you're actually happy because they're moving on, or they decided that something else in life is there, but yeah, they're leaving the mothership, and you know, like it's like that makes me really sad, you know. But that's the difference between, that's where you have to realize like you are not the company. There's a company and there's you, and they're not leaving you, they're leaving the company, you see. And that's the reason where that's the moment where you realize like, this company is it's a vessel. It's something else. It lives on their own, and on its own, and you need to feed it, and otherwise it dies. And that's but that's really hard because you miss them.
Yeah. The thing that I find that helps me when, like, you know, when you have to say goodbye to people you enjoy working with, you know, I always think that what's right for you is right for the other, and the other way around too. What's right for them is right for you, and that somehow it's probably what's best for the company too. Anyway. So, oh my God, I have still so many questions. When do you feel most alive?
That question, I read it. I have to think about that a bit. Drinking champagne again. I when I was thinking about the question, I was thinking about what emotions would you know be attached, because obviously I think that's just a human thing. Like when we are in love, for example, that's when we feel most alive. Or when we had a very good, crazy experience, something that brought us maybe a bit close to something extreme, and we overcame it or something. Like I remember like deep sea diving, for example. It was an extreme struggle for me to get through the course, but once I was on the water and I could see all the fish and everything, that was just really feeling alive. Because when I was a kid, I always wanted to become an astronaut. So I always was obsessed with flying and the universe, and the only moment in my life that I felt like I was actually flying was when I was diving. Because you really feel like, like you're going up and down, almost like you're flying. I don't know if you ever had a flying dream.
No. Oh, well, a flying dream, probably, yeah. And but I never went deep sea. How do you call it? Diving, yeah. So.
But when you have a flying dream, how do you fly? How does that work with you? Because everyone has these dreams, but it's never the same.
I don't know. I don't really remember.
But you just go like...
You're floating, yeah.
You're floating, right? Yeah. It's kind of like water in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just floating around. Yeah. Okay, so I think I have time for one last question. I was interested in having your opinion on the future of fashion. How do you see, like, according to you, what's your vision? How will it evolve? What does it need?
It needs so much.
That's good.
Yeah, I think we are definitely not there yet. But I'm also a little bit scared, maybe, that some things won't change. Because the problem is a little bit that whenever there is something that you think is changing, like inclusivity or sustainability or another approach on skin color or gender in the runways or in models and sizing and age and everything, then you see that the pioneers of putting that change through are the young designers and people that have a vision and that are not yet well established in the market, really. So they can scream and they can do what they want, and that's also the great thing about being a beginner. And then all the others follow, but they follow in a sort of mild version of it. And then it quickly becomes something that is not really hitting the goal anymore. So whatever change can be done by, communicating about these topics is good. I just don't know if it really can change everything around. It's still a very capitalist system, so money will come first above everything. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. And another time, congratulations for your 10-year anniversary.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.